Hi all, in this video we look at how to get started with the gameplay basics in Aloft. Aloft is a cozy survival game that boasts several unique features and game mechanics, and in this video we are going to look at all the smaller and bigger gameplay basics you will encounter throughout the first hours of playing. Some of these might be intuitive to you, while others might not be, so let's get started. A quick note about the co-op mode and a few things to keep in mind without going into too many details. As Team Pixelcave, we play most games together, so in Aloft we preferably want to build and live on one skyship together. And yes, you can do this in-game, but currently there are some limitations. While the host of the world can allow access to the skyship for building and storage, other players won't be able to set it as their home base, meaning they can't teleport to it, see the home icon on the horizon, or do things like quick transporting animals to the base. If you want to have the convenience of all this, then each player needs to build and use their own skyship. The devs have gotten a lot of feedback on this, and hopefully they'll improve the co-op aspects over the course of early access. It's not the end of the world, though it will be an annoyance for some. The first thing you learn in game is how to craft things. The way it works in Aloft is the same whether you craft items directly on your character or access the crafting menu on your workbench. Items that can be crafted are learned via a discovery system, where you have to combine various resources in order to learn a new recipe. While this sounds like a challenge, it's actually very simple, as the game gives you very clear hints whenever you have discovered resources that can result in a new recipe. The key is to look for any resources that have a yellow dot on their icon. As long as there's a yellow dot, you can combine these resources to discover something new. And the good news is that in order to learn new recipes, the resources don't need to be in your inventory. You simply need to have found them once. When using your tools or weapons, you might have noticed a bar on your screen with a small indicator and a highlighted area. This is a combo bar. If you time your strikes to hit while the indicator is within the highlighted area, you will perform a combo, and after a few strikes, a combo finisher. We haven't seen it do a lot of difference when harvesting resources, but a finisher during building, for instance, automatically completes all pieces around the one you've hit with a combo finisher. While it's not critical, give it a try, especially during combat, to make your attacks hit more efficiently. In order to build, you need to equip a hammer and access the build menu by pressing B. You can then navigate through the various categories and blueprints you have learned. Some items have variations, which you can select by pressing 1 and 3 to alternate between the options. Many build pieces are first placed as frames that can be completed by hitting them with your hammer. If you want to quick select an existing item you have already built, press your middle mouse button when looking at it to copy it. There are also different snapping modes that allow you to either place building pieces freely or with the help of predefined snap points. To alternate between snapping modes when building, press R. Fully disabling snapping opens up a ton of creative options for sure. We're not that good, but we can't wait to see what others will come up with. Generally, every item you've built can be dismantled. Simply enter the dismantling mode by holding your right mouse button, then focus on the item you want to dismantle and press your left mouse button. The good news is that you always get 100% of your resources refunded. Very early in game, you learn how to craft a glider, which will be your primary form of movement throughout the game. While it can take a while to get the hang of gliding, there are a couple of things that are good to know. First off, you can invert the controls in case you have trouble getting used to the defaults. Holding your right mouse button to slow down can also be very helpful, especially if you're aiming to land on a smaller area. And then there's the option to get a boost while gliding. You can do so by pressing your left mouse button. And for an extra speed boost, click again when your indicator is within the white area. This will, however, cost you 1 momentum bar. Momentum acts a bit like stamina in other games, and you use it up when, for example, performing special moves or extra gliding boosts. Another way to get boosts while gliding is to use updrafts. They not only take you high up, but also quickly refill your momentum. And finally, while gliding through the skies is very unrestricted, you can only glide between islands within a cluster, or as the game calls it, archipelagos. Traveling to another cluster of islands requires a skyship, as gliding too far from an island cluster will exhaust you and send you to a nearby spawn point. Now, you've most certainly come across some points of interest that taught you new crafting recipes already, but it might not always be clear what you can learn from what. In short, knowledge stones teach new technology and building pieces. Lost anchors teach new sailing blueprints. And frescoes are teaching you knowledge of great significance for your progression, like the glider in the start of the game. Should you no longer learn anything new from a knowledge stone or anchor, you might have exhausted the current biome, so it's possible that you will once again find new blueprints when traveling to a different biome. Last but not least, there is also a small chance that loot containers yield scrolls for special cooking recipes. In addition to finding new knowledge via points of interest in the world, there's also a pretty unique feature that allows you to learn new decor and build options. And that's your sketchbook. Sketchbooks can sometimes be found in loot containers, or alternatively, you can craft one by discovering its recipe at your workbench. In order to use the sketchbook, you also need pieces of paper and charcoal. You can get paper through books that can be found throughout the world, or craft paper, although crafting seems rather costly in the beginning. To get charcoal, simply chop all the black tree stumps that you come across. Equip your sketchbook and hold the right mouse button to enter sketch mode. You can then inspect ruins or other building parts and decorations you come across. Blueprints that are unknown to you will highlight the item in yellow, and you can learn them by pressing your left mouse button while in sketch mode. It's a really interesting feature that makes exploring even more rewarding. While the game guides you towards building your first skyship, let's quickly summarize all the basics you need to know in order to get airborne. First, you need to scout out a suitable island. Whatever creative build you have in mind, you can choose anything from tiny to bigger islands, with the exception of very large islands that are too heavy. In order to claim your island, you need to build a home kite and bind to it, which makes the island your home base. From then on, you can teleport to your island or spawn it to wherever you are in your or any other world. Now, to the basics when it comes to navigation. You need to build a helm, floaters to lift your island, rudders to rotate your island, and sails to move. And depending on the size of your island, you will need a couple or more of each. More rudders, floaters and sails also improve your island's maneuverability in general. Make sure that nothing is blocking your sails so they can harness the power of wind as best possible. Furthermore, orientating your sails in the same direction as your helm makes them more efficient. There are actually some helpful markers when you place sails, so align those for a good placement. If you press F while at the helm, you will enter a detailed mode that provides you with more information about your sailing efficiency. This can be very useful if you want to optimize your ship layout or find potential weaknesses in your setup. Over time, you will discover more blueprints that teach you different types of sails, not only in shape but also material. The different properties of your sails can influence flexibility, speed and durability, so keep that in mind, especially if you want to travel to another ring on the map and closer to the hurricane. And lastly, sails can be repaired when they get damaged. If you craft and equip a spyglass, you can inspect islands from afar to see if you have already visited them. If any tasks or discoveries are left undone on an island, or if the island is too heavy to be used as a base, you'll also see a corresponding icon. Furthermore, you can also place a waypoint on any island you want to visit or highlight for friends. Building a table map on your skyship will provide you with the same functionality when interacting with it and inspecting your discovered map areas. In addition to the spyglass, you can also use atlases on your table map. Atlases are rare, found items in the world, and using one will reveal and mark an important island on your table map. One of Aloft's key objectives is to restore the ecosystems of various islands you come across. Sometimes this can involve clearing islands from corruption by fighting fungi creatures and plants that have infested the land. But more often it requires you to restore the flora and fauna of islands. While not always obvious visually, you'll notice that something is out of balance in an ecosystem if you can't gather resources on it or if points of interest are blocked. In order to find out what needs doing, you need to equip and consult your field guide. Field guides can sometimes be found in loot containers, or alternatively, you can craft one by discovering its recipe at your workbench. When opening your field guide, you'll see a list of requirements that need completing to restore an island's ecosystem to 100%. This can be the number of trees that are planted, animals that live on the island, or the diversity of things. There are various tasks, but some of the simplest involve planting trees or plants with seeds you find while gathering resources. Or animals that need to be transported and introduced to the island. You might not always be able to complete all tasks right away, due to not having progressed enough or not having discovered all animals and resources that are needed. But don't worry, you can always come back later. Now, there are of course more features you'll encounter over time. But these are what we believe the most important gameplay basics you should know about when starting out. We hope you found our guide helpful, and as always, feel free to leave a comment.